Hi there, Norm here from Sell More Real Estate. Selling real estate without selling. Well, Nietzsche wrote a book on Marx, or Donald Trump maybe, which is an edited line from Don McLean's Bye Bye Miss American Pie, as if you didn't know. I'm being increasingly drawn into philosophy. It's always been my belief that selling real estate simply can't be achieved by actually selling. Tell you why. A man whose work I'm really not familiar with is a guy called Voltaire, French guy who lived from 1844 until 1900. He came up with this thought: the secret of being a bore is to tell everything. That is so unbelievably true. I'm a big fan of a guy called Mark McCormack. If you ever watch any sports at all, anywhere in the world, then the sports people you're watching are probably represented by one of this guy's companies. He left us in 2003. He wrote a book called What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School, amongst others. Big bestseller it was. And I've read them all. I have to admit, it's precisely because I have read all of his books that for the life of me, I can't remember in which book I read this story. That is a cracker. I think it was back in the 70s, one of the US West Coast universities sponsored a study of human interaction based on the simple act of conversation with a total stranger. Here's the way they did it, and please excuse me if I don't get this 100% right. This is going from memory. They took a group of 20 students and booked them onto a flight from Los Angeles to New York. All the students were instructed to engage the passenger next to them, a total stranger, in a casual conversation. But 10 were told that every statement they made to the passenger was required to be a statement about what the student was interested in. The student was not allowed to ask any questions whatsoever of their fellow traveller, but they had to maintain the conversation during the entire flight. OMG, you're thinking. The other 10 were similarly told that they had to engage their travelling companion in a casual conversation too, but that every word that came out of their mouths had to end in a question mark. In other words, those 10 students were required to engage their subject in a conversation that could only be about the passenger. They were not allowed to say a single word about themselves. At the end of the journey, on exiting from the plane, it was revealed to the passengers who had been subjected to this unwilling survey that they had in fact been the subject of an experiment in human interaction through conversation. Then they were interviewed, and this was the geez Louise moment for me. Without exception, the plane passengers who had been sat next to a student who had talked about nothing but themselves were extremely negative. 100% negative. The replies varied from mildly irritating to the most annoying person I've ever met in my entire freaking life. And I didn't say freaking there, by the way. The plane passengers who had been sat next to a student who had talked only about their fellow travellers' interests, and here we're talking about really inane stuff, nothing challenging at all. For example, where they lived, where they worked, what their spouse was like, what TV shows they watched, what football team they supported, what baseball or basketball team they followed, what candies they preferred, what TV sitcoms they liked. To a man and to a woman, the comments were 100% positive. The most revealing result of this study was that in every single case, the subject who had been asked about only their lives said that the student who had been sat next to them was, and I'm paraphrasing here, the most interesting person I have ever met. The fact that they knew absolutely nothing about the person who had been interrogating them was totally immaterial. Because at the end of the day, the number one most interesting thing in anyone's life is themselves. So when you take the time to ask people about their lives, then they're actually talking about the number one most interesting thing in their lives, which is themselves. If you want to be the number one seller of real estate in your area, then the way to do that is to get interested in the people who want to buy real estate. What you want, what you're interested in, are the most boring things that you could possibly present to prospects. And on that note, let's get back to Voltaire. The secret of being a bore is to tell everything. So to be brutally frank, keep your trap shut. Ask, yes, but then listen. Norm MacLeod here from Sell More Real Estate. Thanks for watching. Bye.